The Ship of Fools, Episode 113. Sherlock Holmes on Ice. The Shadow Quest drifted through a silent sector of space, its engines humming with the contented rhythm of a ship that, for once, wasn't time-traveling, exploding, or being eaten by something with too many teeth. The crew savored the rare calm. Moxie sharpened her knives with the precision of a surgeon. Banning reviewed mission logs with the weary resignation of a man who knew peace was temporary. Snipes attempted to teach Aurora how to play a card game she already understood better than he did. Aurora flickered suddenly, her hologram dimming. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying an edge of urgency, "I am detecting a small vessel adrift ahead. No power, no life signs, no identification." Banning straightened. "How small?" Aurora projected a hologram of a sleek, coffin-shaped craft drifting silently through the void. Frost coated its hull, and faint wisps of vapor trailed behind it like the breath of a sleeping giant. Snipes squinted. "Looks like a space popsicle." Moxie frowned. "Or a cryopod." Aurora nodded. "It appears to be a single-occupant stasis craft, very old, possibly centuries." Banning stood. "Bring it aboard." Snipes pumped his fist. "Yes! Popsicle rescue mission!" Aurora dimmed. "Snipes, please refrain from licking the occupant." "I make no promises." The cryocraft was brought into the Shadow Quest's hangar, its frost-covered surface glistening under the lights. The crew gathered around as Aurora interfaced with the pod's ancient systems. The ice cracked, hissed, and evaporated in a cloud of cold vapor. Inside lay a man in a long coat, a deerstalker hat resting beside him, and a curved pipe clutched in one hand. His face was sharp, angular, unmistakably Victorian. His eyes snapped open with startling clarity. He sat up. "Where," he demanded, "is Moriarty?" Snipes screamed. "He's alive!" The man swung his legs over the side of the pod, steadying himself. "I am Sherlock Holmes," he said. "Consulting detective, and I am in the midst of a pursuit most dire." Banning blinked. "Sherlock Holmes? As in the Sherlock Holmes?" Holmes adjusted his coat. "Is there another?" Snipes gasped. "I'm your biggest fan. I've read all your stories." "Well, most of them. Well, I saw a movie once." Holmes studied him with piercing eyes. "You have the look of a man who has misplaced something important." Snipes nodded vigorously. "My dignity. Frequently." Holmes stepped out of the pod, his movements precise and deliberate. "I was in pursuit of Professor James Moriarty when he fled through a temporal aperture. I followed, but the device malfunctioned. I was forced into cryogenic stasis to preserve my life until such time as I could resume the chase." Moxie crossed her arms. "You're telling us Moriarty is somewhere in our time?" Holmes nodded. "Indeed, and he will not rest until he has wrought chaos on a scale unimaginable." Snipes raised his hand. "Can I be your Dr. Watson?" Holmes studied him for a long moment. "You are enthusiastic." Snipes beamed. "That's a yes." Holmes sighed. "We shall see." Snipes proudly informed Holmes that he held a doctorate in quantum metaphysical holistic omnitherapeutics, delivered with the confidence of a man who had never once questioned the legitimacy of his own diploma. Holmes accepted this without visible reaction, merely nodding and saying, "Excellent. Then I shall rely on your expertise, Dr. Snipes." Holmes spent the next hour exploring the Shadow Quest with the intensity of a man who had solved crimes in every corner of London and saw no reason why a spaceship should be any different. He examined consoles, sniffed bulkheads, tapped on panels, and muttered deductions under his breath. Snipes followed closely, carrying a notebook and wearing a deerstalker hat he had made by sewing two baseball caps together. "Should I write this down? Should I take notes? Should I—" "Silence," Holmes said. "I am thinking." Snipes nodded vigorously. Thinking. Got it. I can do that. I think sometimes, too. Holmes paused at a junction. Your ship has experienced recent temporal disturbances. Banning stiffened. How did you... Holmes tapped the wall. Residual chronoenergy. The faint scent of paradox. And your AI is... compromised. Aurora flickered beside them, her hologram glitching. I am functioning within acceptable parameters. Holmes raised an eyebrow. You are lying. Aurora dimmed. I am... functioning. Holmes nodded. As I thought. Moriarty has been here. Snipes gasped. He hacked Aurora? Aurora flickered. I was not hacked. I was... misled. Moxie frowned. By who? Aurora hesitated. By a man who introduced himself as Cutter. Holmes's eyes narrowed. Cutter. An alias Moriarty has used before. It's in reference to his practice of dismembering some of his most unfortunate victims. Banning groaned. Great. We've got a Victorian homicidal maniac loose in the galaxy. Snipes raised his hand. Can I arrest him? Holmes shook his head. You would not survive the attempt. Snipes lowered his hand. Fair enough. Holmes spent the next several hours repairing Aurora's compromised logic, analyzing the cryopod's logs, and mapping Moriarty's last known trajectory. The crew watched him work with a mixture of awe and confusion. Finally, Holmes stood, brushing off his coat. I have what I need. Snipes perked up. Great. When do we leave? Holmes blinked. We? Snipes nodded eagerly. I packed my bags. I'm ready to be your new Dr. Watson. I even practiced saying, Good heavens, Holmes! Want to hear it? Holmes held up a hand. No. Snipes deflated. But you said I could assist you. Holmes stepped closer, his expression softening in a way Snipes had not expected. My good man, you already have. Snipes blinked. I have? Holmes nodded. You provided me with information, access, and, most importantly, a reminder. Snipes tilted his head. A reminder of what? Holmes placed a hand on his shoulder. That every man must walk the path meant for him. Your place is here, aboard this vessel with these people. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Snipes swallowed hard. But you'll need help. Holmes smiled faintly. I shall manage. I always do. A chime echoed through the hangar. Aurora flickered. A passing freighter is requesting docking clearance. Holmes turned toward the airlock. My ride is here. Snipes ran after him. Holmes, wait! Holmes paused at the threshold. Snipes held out the deerstalker hat he'd been wearing. For luck. Holmes accepted it with surprising gentleness. Thank you, Dr. Snipes. Snipes sniffed. You'll come back, right? Holmes tipped the hat. If fate wills it. He stepped aboard the freighter. The airlock closed. The freighter detached, engines flaring as it vanished into the star-speckled dark. Snipes stood in the hangar long after it was gone. Moxie approached quietly. You okay? Snipes nodded. Yeah, I thought I was supposed to go with him. Moxie nudged him. You're supposed to be here. Snipes smiled faintly. Holmes said that too. Banning walked in. Snipes, did you leave your bags in the airlock? Snipes blinked. Oh, no. Aurora flickered. They have been jettisoned into space. Snipes groaned. Holmes was right. I am exactly where I'm meant to be. Moxie smirked. And your luggage is exactly where it belongs. Snipes sighed. The universe is cruel. Aurora dimmed. Statistically, yes. The shadow quest drifted in the soft glow of a nearby nebula, its engines humming with the relieved sigh of a ship that had narrowly avoided becoming the stage for a Victorian-era duel of wits. The hangar was quiet now, the cryopod sealed, the freighter long gone, and the faint scent of pipe tobacco still lingering in the air like a ghost of a century-old mystery. Snipes waited by himself in the corridor next to the airlock, his gaze fixed on the spot where Sherlock Holmes had disappeared into space. Having lost his luggage, Snipes now possessed only what fit into a duffel bag, overpacked, uneven, held together by 3 belts and sheer hope, which rested at his feet like a forgotten pet. He sighed dramatically. "I would have been a great Watson." Aurora flickered beside him, her hologram soft and steady now that Holmes had repaired her logic. "Statistically, you would have been a catastrophic Watson." Snipes frowned. "You don't know that." Aurora tilted her head. "You once attempted to arrest your own reflection." Snipes crossed his arms. He was acting suspicious. Aurora dimmed. "He was you!" Snipes kicked his duffel bag. "Holmes didn't even give me a chance." Moxie approached from down the hall, wiping grease from her hands. "He gave you exactly the right chance." Snipes looked up. "What does that mean?" Moxie leaned against the wall. "Holmes is a man who sees everything, every detail, every flaw, every strength. If he says you're meant to be here, he means it." Snipes stared at the floor. "But I wanted to help him catch Moriarty." Moxie nudged his shoulder. "You did help him. You helped him get back on the trail. And you helped him remember he doesn't do it alone." Snipes blinked. "I did?" Moxie nodded. "Yeah, and besides, you're part of this crew. You're part of us. Holmes has his story. We have ours." Snipes looked at his duffel bag, then at the stars beyond the viewport. Slowly, he picked up the bag, unbuckled it, and began pulling out the contents. A magnifying glass, a fake mustache, a notebook labeled Snipes Clues, a trench coat 3 sizes too big, and a pair of opera binoculars he had stolen from the ship's emergency theater kit. Moxie raised an eyebrow. "You packed opera glasses?" Snipes shrugged. "They're Holmesy." Aurora flickered. "Would you like me to store these items?" Snipes shook his head. "Nah, I'll keep them, just in case he comes back." Moxie smirked. "You think he will?" Snipes smiled faintly. "Holmes said fate decides, and fate's weird around me." Aurora dimmed. "Statistically, that is accurate." Snipes slung the empty duffel bag over his shoulder. "Well, guess I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." Moxie nodded. "You always were." They walked back toward the common room, the corridor lights dimming behind them. Snipes paused once, glancing back at the airlock as though expecting Holmes to reappear with a new case, a new clue, a new adventure. But the airlock remained still. The stars outside shimmered quietly. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, Sherlock Holmes was already following the faint trail of his eternal foe, while Snipes, assistant to no one but himself, returned to the ship that needed him more than he knew. Aurora flickered beside him. "Snipes, would you like to resume our card game?" Snipes grinned. "Only if you promise not to deduce my entire strategy before I play." Aurora paused. "I cannot promise that." Snipes sighed. "Holmes would have understood." Moxie laughed. "Holmes would have beaten you faster." Snipes brightened. "Yeah, but he would have done it politely." The shadow quest drifted onward, carrying one commander, one warrior, one AI, and one man who had almost become the assistant to the greatest detective in history, but who, in the end, was exactly where he belonged. And in the hangar, unnoticed, a single object lay on the floor where Holmes had stood, a small folded note. Snipes would find it later. It read, "Dr. Snipes, should fate ever require your assistance, I shall know where to find you. S.H. Snipes fainted. End of episode 113. The missions of the Shadow Quest, the Ship of Fools, will continue.